Hi, everyone. So, welcome to the CAS podcast on this beautiful Sunday. I am actually here with a complete legend of the game. I'm here with none other than George Foster, one of the best scouts in the UK, according to the likes of Graham Ricks and Glenn Hoddle. That's how I've come to know this gentleman. And so, George, just wanted to start this off. Obviously, this is actually the second episode. Obviously spoken to Graham and some real great football people and some really good conversations. What take me kind of back, because I think we met. I think we first spoke. It was when I think you guys were in Bisham Abbey. I think you'd just come back from
Yeah,
Spain. Isn't
yes.
that right? And that was what around 2011. I think around
Uh,
2011,
yeah, it would have
2010.
been around that time, Nick.
Yeah. It's quite a while ago.
Oh,
Just shows
time
you where
flies, mate, doesn't it?
it does, absolutely it does. George, one of the things I want to, and this one of the things I always like to ask people, and because I always think that when you think of environments and you think of culture, um, if I was kind of growing up with you, obviously, I mean, I just want to just let people know kind of a little bit about your background. So you're originally from Plymouth. Your career obviously started out at Plymouth. Obviously, you were at Exeter. You're at Exeter. You were at Derby County, and then I think, if I'm not mistaken, don't even remind me. Sorry, my phone's things just went down here. I'll just so I can let everybody know. Um, the next, and then you obviously Mansfield Town. That's what it was, and you played almost 400 games for them, just under 400 games for Mansfield Town. And then he worked for a number of really good managers, had a lot of big experiences, obviously from management to then obviously scouting's mainly where that's kind of what we're going to speak to you about today. But if way before all of that, if I was growing up with you and we grew up on the same street together, and then we're going to school together, who's George Foster?
Well, I was from a family of eight,
Wow.
six
Okay.
sisters and a brother. My father was a docker,
Right.
worked in Millbay Docks.
Okay.
Um, my brother, I've got an older brother. He went to work in Millbay Docks with my dad.
Okay.
Um, and I probably, Nick, that's where I would have probably ended up, working in Millbay Docks as a docker if the good Lord hadn't given me the ability to play football.
Right. Okay. And when you kind of talk about your background, and you're talking about, like, so obviously you obviously went to school. Obviously, what would you say? What can you kind of remember? What kind of influenced you to get involved in football? How old were you when you got involved in the game?
First, I was seven years of age. I remember I was
Okay.
at primary school,
Okay.
and the history teacher was a football mad. He was football mad,
Right.
and so he set up a school team. We never
Okay.
had one before that,
Okay.
and he set up a school team, and we had trials, and I got um, into the team, and really from there it just took off. I found that I mean, I was always out with the football. I mean, every Christmas, my present was a case football.
Right. Okay.
That lasted me, Nick, lasted me 1 year
Okay.
till the Christmas, and then I'd have another football to take me through the other year. And I used to go down to the back court on my own, just
Okay.
kicking the ball against the wall. My neighbours used to go potty because all they could hear was this ball banging against the wall. Right foot, left
No.
foot.
No ball games, right? The signs used to
No,
say no ball games.
that went up. I think they got that fed up with me. They got the council in to put a sign up: no ball games.
There it is. I like it.
Oh,
I like it. It's interesting when you see that sign, no ball games, because you see that in working. I always used to see them on council houses, only
yeah.
council houses. And then I was said to my parents, I'm like, why does it say no ball? And then I realized this is where the footballers are, and that actually got me to play in those types of areas, because I was like, this is where the footballers are. Do you know what I mean? So it's, yeah, good point. Yeah, really
Nick,
good
it's
point.
true what they say. The kids used to knock on my door because I had a football. So I was the one whose door they knocked on, and we'd go down the back court, and it wasn't a big area, and we'd play 11, 12, 13 aside.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
and what it did, you know, in those tight areas, it gave you that ball mastery, that technical
Right.
ability to be able to move the ball in tight areas, you know,
Mm. And
without
so,
without knowing about it
right.
at the
And
time.
so as you were progressing and you were like you were gaining more confidence as a kid, and then obviously you go to high school, and did you from that age did you kind of feel like, what were your parents like? Were they supportive? What type of people were they in terms
Uh,
of?
Nick, I don't know how my dad did it. I mean, you know,
Mm,
8 children, mum,
right.
dad. My grandfather lived with us as well, so we had 11 in the council flat. You know, we had 4 bedrooms, but somehow we just got on with life. But he was, you know, he pushed us all the way, all of us.
Right.
You know, with me, with my education, you know, I was lucky enough to pass my 11 plus, and I went to a high school called Tamar in Plymouth.
Okay.
And lucky enough for me, they had an unbelievable PE department.
Right.
And the 2 teachers there, it was actually a rugby school.
Right. Because
But
Plymouth is quite a rugby place, isn't it? Would it be very
yes,
rugby
yes, it is.
orientated?
Cornwall and Devon, you know, are rugby places. Um, and you know, the good thing was you know, we did every sport. You know, I played basketball, cricket, athletics, football, rugby. You know, I spent more time out of class than I did in class because I was,
Mm.
you know, a sportsman that could play all the different sports.
Right. Okay. And so, do you think that kind of, so as your parents, you were saying they really motivated you? Did many of your siblings, were they also involved in sport, or were you kind of the predominant one sibling that was like very sports mad and very driven?
Yeah, I was the sports person. I mean, you know, in those days, Nick, all those years ago, women, the females, the 6 sisters,
Mm.
they weren't probably career driven at the time. You know,
Right.
in no, say those days, they tended to, you know, go to school, come out, work, get married, have children, and be a housewife.
Right. Okay.
You
Which
know?
is very different now, isn't it? It's a very different
Oh,
generation.
no, absolutely, absolutely.
So once you obviously go then, so you're in high school, right? And you're going through, what sort of did you really, when you went to high school, so you're around what, 11, 12, 11 or 12, you go to
11.
school, did you want to be at that stage, was being a professional footballer, was that like your ambition? Were you single-minded? Was it more later on, but towards the end of high school when you kind of decided, or what way
No,
did you go?
Nick, I think I knew that I had an ability
Okay.
to play football. And going to my high school, that was great for me because, you
Mm,
know, I was involved in all the sports. Football
okay.
was football. Actually, I was a better rugby player than I was a footballer.
No
But in
way.
those
Okay.
days,
Mm.
there was no, you didn't get paid for playing rugby. It was an amateur sport.
Right.
So, you know, and then, you know, whilst I was at school, I got into the Plymouth Schoolboys, the representative side.
Okay. So
Um,
that was like the beginning.
yeah, that Plymouth Argyle. Then the chief scout came, knocked on my door, asked to speak to my dad, said that he wanted me to sign. That was associate schoolboy forms then.
Right.
You
What year
know,
would this have been? What year would
gosh,
this?
what would this have
Not to
been?
show people your age, you know what I mean?
This would have been what was I, 50, 66? This would have been early 70s.
Early 70s. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
early 70s. Um, and, you know, I had other offers. I had interest from Birmingham City, Man City, but, you know, I felt that I had a better chance of progressing if I stayed at my local club, which was Plymouth
Right.
Argyle.
Okay. So it worked out
Um,
quite well, didn't it? Because that was where you were from, that's where you grew up. And so did you grow like a big infinity with the fans there as you progressed at Plymouth? Did you really grow a big, was it a very community-based club at that time
yeah,
in the early
Nick,
70s?
I think everybody, even nowadays in the modern day game, supporters love to see local boys.
Yeah.
They
Wow.
do.
Yeah.
They and we had a super youth setup at Plymouth when I joined. We had players that played 500-600 games for Plymouth. Kevin Hodges, Lee Cooper, Chris Harrison. They all played 400, 500, 600 games for Plymouth Argyle. So they joined
Wow.
at 15 until they finished their careers.
Oh my goodness.
Um,
Okay.
I left it. I left when I was 25 because I wanted to. Looking ahead, I wanted to go into coaching, into management, and
Okay.
being at Plymouth. Really, you only had Torquay and Exeter, Bristol Rovers maybe, but even then, that was a big journey up to Bristol from Plymouth.
Right. Okay.
And so I thought then that if I came up, Derby County came in and wanted to sign me. And I thought then that if I go to Derby, which is in the middle, I'll have far more options later on to stay
Okay.
in football. And
Right. Okay.
as it happened, it was the best decision I made because, fortunately enough, I've been out in the great game, up to now.
Right. And so when you were kind of coming through that kind of process as a player, obviously you were, so that I'm not mistaken here, you obviously started out, so you started out as a striker, isn't that right? You originally
Right.
started as a striker, and then you obviously became a centre half. Explain to that transition.
Well, they say that sometimes you need a bit of luck in life.
Right.
Mine was that as a striker, I was a good target man, but I couldn't score goals. I didn't have the ability to score
Mm.
goals. If I attacked the near post, it went to the far post. If I attacked the far post, it went to the near post. I just couldn't find the ball in the box.
Why do you think that was? If you're looking back now, what do you think? What would you think the reason for that was? Do you think you're just lack of kind of, I suppose, in front of goal intelligence, or in the final third was just
No,
lacking, or what
no,
do you think it was?
Nick, I believe that goal scorers they're born.
Right.
You can teach players about movements inside, outside the box. The real prolific goal scorers, they find the ball.
Yeah.
Somehow they end up in the right area,
Mm.
get on the end of the ball, and score goals. I didn't have that ability. It just wasn't. But what I had the defensive abilities.
Okay.
But it took. I remember I was sat on the subs bench. We were playing Birmingham City in
Okay.
the Anglo-Saxon Cup, something like that, some tournament.
What
Trevor
year would this have
Francis.
been? What
Oh
what year?
gosh, what would this have been? It would have been when I was 17, 18 years of age.
Right. And
Oh,
Trevor Francis, would you guys be how old would he be? He's older than you, isn't he? Trevor
yeah,
Francis?
Trevor's a Plymouth boy.
Okay.
Because when I was coming through from Plymouth, I was always the next Trevor Francis. I
Wow.
was
Okay.
always.
And
Hey, listen, I was never in his.
he obviously, everybody knows him. He obviously went on to win 2 European Cups for Nottingham Forest
Yeah.
at that time. And what type, when you looked at him and you looked at yourself, what comparisons did you make with him?
None at all. None at
Oh,
all.
okay.
Because we were two different types of players. Trevor was always destined to go and play at the top level.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I had a magnificent career. Played 750 games, but mine was sort of a couple of years in the championship as it is now, but most of my career was in the first division as it is now.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I never reached the heights that he did. And I was never going to. He was always an exception, Trevor. He was an absolute, Terrific player.
Did you ever get to play against him or any of the top strikers of that era as a centre half? Once you got converted to being a centre half.
That's what changed my career, really, Nick, because we were playing Birmingham City at home park. Trevor, Tony Woodcock. I mean, they were a first division club then, with Premier. So they came down, and I was sat on the bench, and our centre half got injured, John Padelty, and so the manager then, Mike Kelly, was going to bring on somebody else in midfield and move a midfield player back. And the physio at the time, Tommy Ecclestone, was a very experienced football man. And he said to the manager, put George on, put him on at centre back, he won't let you down. Right. So he went.
Did they tell you about this? Did they tell you about this first?
Oh, no, it was. He said, go on then. All right, Tom, if you go on you go. And I did really well.
Okay.
And it was, Foster comes on at centre back and man of the match and blah, 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 and all those things. And that's when my career took off, Nick.
Right, okay. That's so it really took, like what you just said. I think it's important what you said there, and that our audience can see is that, and for a lot of parents, is that they think, because do you not find in the modern game where they just want to put a kid into a position, but you obviously, as much as you could play as a striker, you weren't going to be effective as a striker, but you could still play the position, but at the same time, being a centre half was where, and I think you would say it, being an attacker is a positive position. Being a, I suppose it's just looking at the game in a more negative sense once you become a defensively minded player, isn't it? So then you go in, and then obviously you progress. And how do you feel like your progression's going? How long did it take you to adapt from being a striker to a centre half? How long did that?
Well, funnily enough, Bobby Saxton, who was a very, very experienced centre back. And was my manager as well down there, told me it would take me about 18 months, which at the time I said to him, no, Gaffer, I feel now that he went, no, listen, you're doing well enough, but with strikers, everything's positive.
Right.
You gamble on everything. As a defender, you don't gamble on anything. He said, as a matter of fact, you become a pessimist. You expect your mates to make mistakes. You expect the goalkeeper to drop it. So it's a completely different thought pattern.
Right. Okay. And so
he was right.
So once you go from Plymouth, and so you're thinking ahead. So was that the reason you left Plymouth? You decided to move on?
The new manager came in, Bobby Moncur, the ex-Newcastle. He came down as the new manager. We didn't quite hit it off.
Right. Okay.
For whatever reasons, it was a two-way thing. It was partly me, it was partly him. So we fell out. Then I went on loan to Exeter City. Right. I mean, at the time, I was captain of Plymouth Argyle. I was, ever present, one player of the years, and that's. So I went to Exeter City, which was only 40 miles up the road. Big. When you have your local derby, Plymouth Exeter, it's a big local derby. Absolutely. There's not a lot of love lost between the two clubs.
A derby's a derby, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So I went there for 6 months till the end of the season and won the Player of the Year at Exeter City.
Right, absolutely.
Which was, which was unheard of at the time.
Okay.
But my future then wasn't at Plymouth. It was no going back.
So I just want to actually ask you about that. So you've obviously come through the ranks. You're a Plymouth boy. You're at the club, and then you become club captain. Do you think when Bobby Moncur came in, and obviously coming from a big club like Newcastle United, right? Would you say that there was it was like almost like two alpha males clashing? It was like you're the captain. He's the new guy. He's the new manager. Would you say that was part of it, or why would you say it just didn't work?
I don't think I was ever that tight, Nick. You know,
Okay.
where I was arrogant, or everything was about me. You know, but you know, the argument was a two-way thing. It wasn't all the manager, and it wasn't all me. It was
Right.
just
Okay.
that people say it was a clash of personalities.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, but you know, so I was as much to blame as he was.
Right. Okay. And
You know,
so, whenever you looked at the whole dynamic of like the relationship versus the other managers that you had in the rest of your playing career, what would you say the dynamic was with those other managers? As because obviously you're a leader at this point. You're obviously, you played a lot of games. How many games would you? Because you would have played what, 200 and over 200 games at Plymouth when you left.
yeah, about 250, near 250 games, Nick. I played for Plymouth.
250. Okay, that's quite a lot of football.
Yeah,
It's a lot of
yeah.
games. And so then obviously you go up to Exeter, and how was that transition from Plymouth? What was it like?
It was strange. Yeah, it was strange because of the rivalry.
Right,
But Exeter had they had a good side at the time.
right.
You know, they were some decent players there. You know, but it was strange for me to travel 40 miles up the road for training every day. You
Wow,
know,
right, okay.
you know, but I thoroughly, really enjoyed my time at Exeter City.
Right,
Absolutely
okay.
loved it. You know,
So then,
um,
at that time, when obviously you were there, did you think you'd be there for a similar time frame as what you were at Plymouth, or did you think, yeah, I'll probably end up moving, I'll probably end up moving,
I think if Exeter could have come up with the deal,
right,
I'd have probably signed for Exeter because
right,
I enjoyed it that much. But
okay,
you know, I was coming out of contract as well, Nick, um,
right,
and you know, I had some big clubs that you know, I went for a trial at Middlesbrough. I remember Terry Venables was on the phone. He wanted me to go up to QPR. You know, they were on the all-weather surface at the time.
right.
Um, Brighton, and I actually went to Brighton, and
Was that
signed.
around, what year was that? What year would that have been? That
Gosh,
would have
Nick,
been around what, 19, what, 19, late
would have been 80, 82, would have been 82,
80.
83.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so was that the time, around that time? Remember when Brian Clough, he was offered the job at Brighton, wasn't he? As well, but then
yeah,
he ended up going
yeah,
to Leeds instead.
yeah. No, he wasn't there then at the
It would have
time.
been way before, okay. Because he
Yeah,
had
yeah.
originally went to go to Brighton, so you maybe could have played under him in
Oh,
certain circumstances. I would have been good, right?
I would have loved to have done that. You
Yeah,
know,
that's
I would have
wow.
loved to have played under him.
Right, okay.
Absolutely.
That's really, it's fascinating though, isn't it? Where you end up and stuff, and so you went and trial even though you had been an established player. I mean, you'd played. Wow, that's interesting. And then so obviously once you finish there, you then so fast forward, so you end up going to Derby County. You
Yeah,
go to Derby County. Explain to us kind of how, in terms of what that was like, because obviously you're going kind of further north. You're going towards the Midlands.
yeah, yeah.
What was that like compared to Plymouth and Exeter and
It
clubs
was
like
an
that?
upheaval, Nick. It was an upheaval because you know it's 250 miles away. I, you know, born in Plymouth, been there. You know, I was 25 years of age, was married with a little daughter, and so we were moving lock, stock, and barrel. We were selling a house. We were moving lock, stock, and barrel up to Derby. No
Okay,
friends, no, you know, didn't know anybody.
right,
Um, but you know, it was a great move for me. You know,
right, okay.
John Newman, who was the manager at the time, was manager at Exeter City.
So
John
John
Newman was
Godfrey, right?
John Newman.
John Newman, yeah, yeah.
John
And,
Newman. He was the manager at Derby,
right, okay,
but John was the manager at Exeter City as well. And
right.
also, John was the captain of Plymouth Argyle when I was a kid. And I used
Oh,
to,
right,
when I
okay.
used to bunk get into the ground. John Newman was one of my heroes.
Oh, no way, okay. So that whole so for you there was such a but Derby County was still a very good side. They were they
Oh,
were a they were a
big
good
club.
team, weren't they?
Yeah.
They
I think they just come out of the first division. Then they were a championship club. But
okay.
the club at the time, Nick, was in financial difficulty. There was no money about. And probably that's how I ended up there because the shortage of money, to
Right,
buy
okay.
to buy better class players.
Right,
Um,
okay.
so in a way, it worked in my favour.
Right,
Um,
okay.
I thoroughly enjoyed my 18 months at Derby. Terrific club. The baseball playing against Man United in the fifth round of the FA Cup. You're there
What was
playing.
that Man United team? Who was in that Man United team at the time?
Gosh, Whiteside, Robson. It was that era. That.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, that was. It was. We played them at the baseball ground, full house, fifth round of the FA Cup. We got beat 1-0 with a goal 5 minutes from time by Norman Whiteside.
Oh, is that right?
And Nick, I never. There was about 3 or 4 grounds I never played at, and Old Trafford was one of them.
Right. Was that
And
always a regret?
all I could think about was, how much longer thinking about be at a replay at Old Trafford.
Oh man.
Oh,
So
well, listen,
Norman
you were
Norman
there. You were at you were at Man United. You know what a big club that is.
Oh, I know. I mean, one of the things I would say is that did he score near the end of that game?
5 minutes from the end.
Five. I'm not. I'm just curious. This is just a hypothetical, but did he score the goal where he hit it on the volley? It went across the goal. Was
No,
that the one? If
no,
I'm,
it was from a cross that was delivered into the box, and he came in and finished it with his left foot into the
oh,
corner of the
oh,
net.
right. Oh my. Was
So
that
Nick,
your fault? Was that goal your fault?
yeah, probably I should have done better on it. I should have done better on it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And so
Um,
you had a really good 18 months at Derby. So kind of fast forwarding out of your playing career, because I think we've established kind of what it was all about. So then you obviously decide to go into coaching. Is that the next transition for you? Pretty much.
no, well, I left Derby and signed for Mansfield Town,
Yeah. So
and there was
after
a
Mansfield Town, what was that? What was that like compared to all the other clubs you've been at?
Mansfield Town was a fourth division club,
Right.
but
So it was
but
further
there was
down.
a
Yeah.
manager there called Ian Greaves,
Okay.
ex-Man United,
Right.
ex-Man
Okay.
United. He was an experienced, great manager.
Right. Okay.
He asked me to go up and have a chat with him. I did. Nick, he locked the door. He wouldn't let me out until I signed.
Really? Oh my
Wouldn't let
goodness.
me
Right.
out. And Ian was one you wouldn't fight Ian. There was only going to be one winner if you had a fight with him. That was Ian Greaves.
Exactly. It's always good to remember that.
Oh dear. And do you know, Nick? I signed a 3-year contract with Mansfield Town
Okay.
and didn't even tell my wife.
Why?
I
Why
didn't
was
tell
that?
her. Well, there were no phones in those days. He
Right.
wouldn't let
Okay.
me out the office, Nick, until I signed. So I went, okay, sign the contract. When I got
Right.
home, I said to my wife, I've just signed for Mansfield Town.
And
three
what did
years.
what did your wife say?
Listen, my wife has always been very, very supportive in my
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
Whatever decisions I've made, Nick, she's always backed me 100%.
That's the name of the game, isn't it? You know what I mean? That's why it's good to keep your wife on side, isn't it?
Well, listen, she's the boss. She knows it as well.
Yeah, it's so obviously you have a very good stint. What was your time like at Mansfield Town compared to all your other spells at Derby and
Very,
Exeter and Plymouth?
very, very successful.
Right. Okay.
I knew it would be with Ian. We got promoted out of the fourth division into the third division. We got to the final of the Freight Rover Cup at Wembley against Bristol City. 72,000 people there. We won on penalties. I got to go up the steps to pick up the trophy at Wembley. Last person, Nick, here's a piece of trivia. I was the last person ever to walk up the Wembley steps, the old Wembley steps, to pick up a major trophy.
Really? Okay. Wow. And so so at that time, obviously you went to a club, they were in the fourth division. How did you kind of find that transition, George? From kind of going from the division from where you were playing with Derby, and clubs like that to the fourth division. Did you feel that was a step backwards, or what do you think? What was
Nick, I thought it was a step backwards to make a step forwards.
Okay. Okay.
And you know, Ian Greaves was a great manager. He was a great manager. You know, I would have gone through a brick wall for Ian Greaves.
Right. Okay.
I would have. I'd have done anything he asked me to do, and I had so much faith in him.
Right.
You know, that I knew the club would eventually go on and be successful, which it was.
Right. Okay. And so, go on ahead. Go on ahead.
Well, the thing was as well that Nick, that he knew that of my interest in coaching. You know, and I, you know, he used to let me take some training sessions with the kids. You know, I wasn't a coach there, and in a way it worked in my favour because Ian Greaves eventually got me the manager's job at Mansfield Town.
Right. Okay. And so
it was Ian.
Right. So all of these, and it's, you know, it's interesting, and you know when you look at kind of where you've come from and kind of where it all started, and I think that's always a unique thing because it's looking at the people who have kind of shaped you on that journey, all of the people that you really respect in the professional game. And do you think when you kind of look at that now and you look at your whole playing career, which from my estimate was a very successful playing career. Do you know what I'm saying? And what would you say, George, was the keys to the success that you had, to setbacks, to, you know what I mean? When, say, for example, when you didn't get along with Bob, it was just a clash of personalities. How would you summarize your playing career if you were to think about what really led to your successes?
I think on my testimonial, I asked Ian Greaves to write a preface for me.
Okay.
And he put on there that every training session that I did was like it was my last training session.
Right. Wow.
And that was my career, Nick. Every game, every training session, there's not a minute that went by in my career that I didn't relish. Right. And even you know, when I was going through the bad times,
right?
You know, and I think that was when Ian Greaves said that, you know, every training session that George did was like it was his last training session.
Right. Okay.
You know? And I thought that was a great honor for him to say that.
So the whole, would you say as like a, you know, when I look at kids now, George, when I look at kids now, and you know the way they say, train how you play, train as if it's a match. So, do you think why do you think other players, where you'll see a player in training, you think, oh my god, or you'll see him in a game and he's shocking, but in training he looks like the next best thing. Why do you think a lot of people don't really have that? Why do you think a lot of people don't have that mentality? What do you think the reason behind that is?
Well, in my case, Nick, I think it was my father was, you know, my father was you know, we knew that he loved us, but he was a hard taskmaster, you know.
Right.
You know, he was a grafter.
Right.
He was a docker. He was a grafter. He was a, you know, and he enforced that into us, a work ethic.
Right.
You know, and to be fair, Nick, that's what I've done with my children, my daughters.
Right.
You know, I've ingrained into them about work ethic, about having a work ethic, and both of them have.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And that was from that's what my father gave me.
Yep, absolutely. So really, when you look at all the influences, and because I think as well when you see kind, because I think as well, especially being a footballer during the 70s and the 80s, do you know what I mean? That they were like really like, I mean, if you look at how much a player gets kicked, how hard you've really got to work. I mean, really hard in pros. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if you looked at, I mean, I know Derby was one of the clubs you were at, and I remember when Brian Clough was there, and some of the players he was bringing in, and they were just hardened pros. You know what I mean? But when you look at like the work ethic, and I find when you're around players, and you know it's, you know, with analysis now being so prevalent in the game, obviously you can say, oh, you can't get away with things because it'll be seen. And so, like, you have somebody say, "Oh, this player here is really good because he ran 11 miles in the game. This player is really poor because he only ran 7." But then the manager might come in and say, "Well, no, he ran 7, but his pass completion and his stats are far better." You know what I mean? So I suppose it's interesting when you look at it from that perspective, isn't it? If you
Nick,
think
if you've got a prolific goal scorer,
yeah.
if you've got it in your team, you've got a prolific goal scorer.
Mm.
Why do you want him running out in wide areas? Why do you want him running 11, 12, 14K?
Right.
You know, when he can run 5, 6, 7K in and around the penalty area and score you 30 goals a season.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
so,
Wow,
you know,
that's
it's
interesting.
horses for courses, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. George will be involved with CAS, so he'll be scouting a lot of players. Like I say, George, we appreciate your experience. We think that what players can learn from you, and some of the feedback you can give a player is just, it's extremely valuable. You know, and I'm glad to have you on our team. You know, because I think that
Thank you.
you're such a great ambassador for the football industry. But as a person as well, I think the things that you bring to the personality and the things you'll tell a player. A lot of people are afraid to be honest with players sometimes, but parents, players, agents, they need that honesty from people like yourself, you know. So yeah, absolutely. So anybody's any comments, don't just leave them in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe. And thank you for joining us on CAS TV.
Thank you, Nick.
All right.